It's that time. All the championship games are done. The college football playoffs are here. And you know what? The Hoosiers are flipping champs of the Big Ten, the number 1 seed in the college football playoffs. And that's what we're talking about on today's show. Not just the Hoosiers, talking the whole college football playoffs. I'm here with Max Cantley, one of my good friends. Max.
Thank you for having me again. It's good to be back. This time, moving on to the college football playoffs. So excited. The Hoosiers, man, only undefeated team left in the country, number 1 team in the nation. Who would have thought we'd be here?
Who would have thought is right? They're the top team in the country. I genuinely still don't believe it. It feels like a fairy tale going on right now.
I've been at this school for 4 years and seen the turnaround firsthand. It still does not feel real. Every time I look on ESPN or I watch a clip of someone talking about the Hoosiers, it does not feel real. It does not feel like we belong with the top teams in the country, the blue bloods of the college football playoff that we've seen, the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, yet the Hoosiers are right up there, and they're on top of them all as of now.
On top of all of them, the top team in the country, and we were both at the Big Ten championship game. Keep in mind, for this episode, we'll be joined by my good friend Sam Sinder, who will be on the show in just a little bit. He's taking a business call right now, but he'll be back. He'll be here shortly to join in on the show. But Max and I were both at the Big Ten championship game. One of, dare I say, the best game I've been to in my entire life. I can't speak for you. But
you can speak for me all you want. That was by far the best sporting event I've been to, and probably for quite some time. I mean, there's nothing like the attachment of being a student at school and watching your team win their conference championship. There's nothing like that I've experienced in my life.
Absolutely. It's an incredible sensation just to be able to go there, be a part of a crowd, an environment of something that has genuinely never happened before. Indiana's never been the top team in the country. They've never won the Big Ten championship game. The last time they were the outright Big Ten champions was World War II, 1945. They'd done it before in 60. They did it a little later in 67, but outright 1945 World War II. That game was nuts. The first play of the game had me actually sweating. Fernando Mendoza gets slammed after throwing a ball, and he stayed on the ground. That was scary.
That terrified me. I was standing right next to you, Chase, and we looked at each other just heart-wrenched. It felt like the anti-storybook of what it was supposed to be. You know, we got there all pumped up, crowd energy electric, and first play of the game, our star quarterback goes down.
Could you imagine how bad that would have been if it was something serious? He said post-game that he was worried for a second that it was a broken rib, then realized it was just, he got the wind knocked out of him, understandably. But could you imagine if that was a broken rib and the rest of the game? I mean, who knows what Alberto would have done? One play, successful, he got a first down.
He did.
He handed the ball off.
Yeah, that's what I really thought it was a broken rib at first. You can just hear him, or not hear him, but see him just wincing on the ground. He wasn't holding an arm or a leg or his head. It just felt like his body was aching after that huge hit. But Mendoza's younger brother comes in, and I said it at the time, if he had to have played that game, nothing gets you going more than seeing your older brother get rocked like that as you walk onto the field. I mean,
absolutely.
I wonder what it would have happened, but I'm glad we didn't have to worry about that. Mendoza out for one play. Fernando comes back in, gets a couple first downs. We didn't score on that drive, but, the rest is history.
The rest
leads
is history.
This team to its first Big Ten championship since World War II.
It's almost impossible to take the smile off of my face right now.
No.
And I can see it on yours too.
Been smiling for days. The smile hasn't left since Saturday night.
Genuinely. That was the most unbelievable environment I've been a part of. And the big guy who showed out in this game, Charlie Becker, when it matters most, Fernando Mendoza has been able to trust his roommate, Charlie Becker. He had 2 phenomenal snags. One at the beginning of the first half that set up the Elijah Surratt touchdown, which he's a demon too. Don't get me wrong. But then you go and you have later in the game, you have the Charlie Becker third down. Indiana's trying to run down the clock. Ohio State has 3 timeouts at the time. Indiana runs twice. Ohio State uses 2 of those timeouts. Third down, or did they use 1?
I think they used 1.
They used 1, yeah. But then third down on like their own, what, like 30? Something like that?
Something like that.
Somewhere around there. And Mendoza, with the ball of his life, with the game potentially on the line, and it ended up being the difference maker, threw it a heave, and Charlie Becker somehow is able to come down with it. One of the best snags I've seen in my entire life. It was, I mean, it's hard to say it was better than the Omar Cooper one against Penn State.
No,
it was not.
Objectively not a better catch, but in that moment in the playoffs, Charlie Becker, the unlikely hero, comes up clutch. He's been slowly getting more work throughout the season. The Elijah Surratt hamstring injury taking him out for a couple weeks. Charlie Becker stepped up. He had a big game in that Penn State game as well. He's slowly being integrated more into this offense, and I think Curt Cignetti and the rest of the offensive staff can really trust him now. I think they're starting to realize that Omar Cooper out the first drive of the game as well with an injury that's to be determined how significant that is. Hopefully he's back on January 1st. But Charlie Becker steps up like he's been doing all season. That deep ball to set up the touchdown, gorgeous ball by Mendoza, and another. Mendoza and Becker just seem to have that connection. Their chemistry unmatched, and Mendoza just knew he could trust his speedy 6'4" wide receiver, Charlie Becker, to go up and get that ball, and that he did.
Absolutely an unbelievable game. Heisman Mendoza, is it finally going to be official this weekend?
I think it is. I think the winner of that Big Ten championship game, as most people predicted, was going to be the Heisman. And box score aside, Mendoza and Sayan's stats were pretty similar, but regardless of the result, regardless of the box score, an unbiased eye test tells me that Mendoza was the better quarterback in that game.
I completely agree. If anything, I would almost go as far to say that had the 2 quarterbacks swapped, I think Ohio State would win that game. I would even go as far to say that because Mendoza, although the stat line didn't look the most impressive, it wasn't 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, whatever. When you watch him, when you see him, he looks comfortable. Sayan didn't look comfortable. Indiana looked like they got to Sayan much more than Ohio State got to Mendoza. And to me, like you said, it's the eye test. To me, that's the big eye test that I saw in this game was that Mendoza, he looked composed. He looked comfortable. Even on that third down, that pass to Charlie Becker at the end of the game to pretty much seal the deal, that was, you could argue, the most dangerous play call that Indiana could have made. And Mendoza just does that. He's just him. And that connection with Becker, he just knew he was going to be there. And I would go as far to say if Mendoza and Sayan swap teams, Ohio State would be the Big Ten champions, not Indiana. That's the difference maker for me. And I know Diego Pavia, he had a phenomenal year at Vanderbilt. I'm still giving it to Mendoza. Jeremiah Love, phenomenal year, but we saw last year Genty didn't get it after his year. I can't really see, I mean, I guess Travis Hunter was there, so changes a little bit, but I can't see it going anywhere else other than the quarterback here at Indiana, Fernando Mendoza.
Unbelievable saying here as our school's quarterback wins the Heisman, but that's truly what I expect, and I think everyone expects it at this point. I'm not sure about the quarterback swap, if that would have made a difference. It perhaps would have, but I completely 1,000% agree that Sayan looked rattled. It looked like the Indiana defensive front, after getting to him a few times, he was a little shaken. You know, he just felt a little jittery in the pocket. He wasn't really keeping his eyes downfield because he felt the pressure coming, and he tried to escape plays that maybe he could have stood in there and delivered a ball. There were a couple plays where Ohio State wide receivers broke open and Sayan just didn't see him or couldn't deliver the ball because he just felt uncomfortable in the pocket. But on the other hand, Mendoza, throughout the game, definitely got better. There was a couple plays earlier on, our offensive line struggled to protect him. He took a couple early sacks, looked a little bit uncomfortable trying to escape the pocket.
I mean, it's his first big game, like,
it
ever.
Is.
This is, I mean, not ever. Oregon and, Penn State, those were some pretty huge games, but it's a different environment. playing against the top team in the country in a game with so much on the line.
And being in Lucas Oil, that stadium was unreal. I've never been in a sporting environment quite like that. The combination of a pretty 50-50 crowd intermixed between Ohio State and Indiana fans made for incredible scenery. And Lucas Oil is a beautiful stadium. The production was incredible. Just Saturday night under the lights, not physically under the lights, but the game, the moment, everything was just perfect. It was the perfect night for the Indiana Hoosiers.
It was cinema, as they say.
Couldn't have scripted it any better.
No.
Our nerves going when it was down to the fourth quarter. Ohio State's kicker missing that field goal. The stadium erupted.
And it did that all game long, no matter what happened. It was a defensive masterclass from both teams, quite frankly. 13-10, the final. I mean, these were the two best defenses in the country. You didn't really expect anything else. But with that, I want to put us on a pause real quick. Sam is here. We're going to get him on the show, and then we'll keep going. All right, we're back from break. We have a very special guest joining, Sam Sinder. Sam, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Chase. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun, talking about some college football playoff bracketology, some playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
IU, number one.
Top team in the country. Can you believe it? I can't.
I mean, I was watching the game. I mean, I don't want to jump the gun here with you on the game.
Go right ahead.
But I don't think Indiana played very well, and they still won the game. And that's what's encouraging for me. When you head into the playoffs, you get a month to reset. You're going to get some injured players that are going to come back, hopefully. Maybe that shoulder area for Fernando is going to feel a little better come playoff time. And so I'm pretty encouraged with what I saw, despite them not even playing, I think, at full strength.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had moments where you look on the field and had a lot of opportunities for Ohio State to either get active on the defensive side of the ball or make a play on offense, and Sayin looked, he looked a little flustered at times, and had he looked more composed, I don't think I kind of agree.
Chase, well, I saw a stat, and because Indiana's top two teams they played Ohio State and Oregon, the two other Big Ten teams that are in the college football playoff, and it was the sack numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those two teams, they don't give up a lot of sacks. Their offensive lines are pretty good. They play Indiana. What was it, 4 sacks against Ohio State, or was it 5?
Five against Ohio State,
against
and
Ohio
I believe
State.
6 for Oregon. Indiana accounted for 44% of those teams' combined sacks let up.
Wow.
Across their 12 and 13 games, respectively.
That is unbelievable.
Unreal.
And, I mean, this game, it all came down to the defense. I think
it came down to the kicking.
Yeah,
that as well. But it kind of canceled out a little bit.
Both teams missed a field goal at the end of the day. So
sure.
You can wash that out.
You're right. No. Defense, you're right.
Defense won the game because you stop Ohio State from scoring more than 10 points, which obviously kicking was a big play. They missed a 4th and 1 when Sayin had his knee go down. That could have been a big difference maker. But at the end of the day, his knee did go down. They missed the field goal. Ohio State didn't score more than 10 points. At the end of the day, that's the big thing. Indiana's defense won this game, not their offense.
And guess what? Ohio State's only touchdown, it came on a short field. When Indiana threw, it was a really ridiculous play call.
Yeah.
It was a poorly executed play, regardless of the play call.
That's probably Mendoza's worst play, arguably of the season, worst throw.
Mm-hmm.
Just a missed screen pass, way offline.
And I think it's partially on the play call and Signetti, because they're arguing the play afterward, saying that there was pass interference. But again, like they mentioned on the broadcast, there can't be pass interference on a backwards pass.
Right.
So
that was something that I actually didn't even know at the time. I had to ask around, can pass interference be called on something like that? Because if that's 15 yards down the field, easy pass interference. But I actually didn't know the rule until then.
And you wonder if Signetti knew the rule, and so maybe he'll freshen up on that. He's very hard on his team, and I'm sure he was hard on himself for that specific play. And guess what? It didn't end up mattering because that was Ohio State's only touchdown, and Indiana played well.
Yeah.
And the trivia question, okay?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
What's the most amount of points Ohio State's given up all season?
I know it's under 20.
It is under 20.
I know.
They're averaging 7 points per game let up this year, somewhere in that ballpark.
If I had to guess, I would say 14.
It's close. I don't remember who it was to, but it was 16.
16. Okay.
And so That remained
unreal.
true. It remained true against Indiana. They gave up 13 points. But
Yeah.
Indiana's defense was good enough to make it not matter and still win the game.
Yeah, I think the two key plays or possessions came down to the two times that Ohio State were within the 10-yard line. They had 2 3rd-and-1s within Indiana's 10-yard line, came away with 0 combined points. First one, Indiana
goodness.
with a stop, and then the 4th down, 4th and 1, Julian saying knee hitting the ground. I think that was a little bit fortunate. I think they probably get that first down. I think the offensive line had enough of a push to get him there if he didn't slip. And then in the second half, in the key fourth quarter drive that Ohio State put together, they looked like they were marching down the field, ready to walk into the end zone. 4th and 1. Opt to go for the tying field goal. I think a little bit of a conservative play call from Ryan Day.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know what happened. A missed chip shot. So they walk away with 0 points from 2 drives within Indiana's 10-yard line. I think Ohio State fans would probably tell you that they shot themselves in the foot more than Indiana won that game. But regardless, 0 points, that's the difference.
You know, it's hard to be results-oriented, but do you feel that they should have gone for that 4th and 1, 4th and 2, whatever it was?
I was just going to ask
Absolutely.
him. Why?
Absolutely.
You think so? Because I feel like if they go for it, they don't get it. Everyone's saying, what are you doing? Because you're down a field goal. You're on a field goal. You tie the
that would
game
then
with a
tie
field
the
goal.
game, and it's a tie game. You trust your defense. That's been the best part of your team all year
It's
long.
not a long field goal.
No.
It's a short field goal.
No. Yeah, I mean, in Ryan Day's mind, it's already a tie game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was about 2 minutes and 40 seconds left. Indiana with, I believe, 2 timeouts and the 2-minute warning, having to get a stop and not allow any points. But from an Indiana football perspective, from an Indiana fan perspective, if they kick that field goal, I'm very confident in Fernando Mendoza and Kurt Cignetti's ability to march 40 or 50 yards downfield with plenty of time in a 2-minute drill, the same type of 2-minute drill that we dealt with in the Penn State game. They're experienced on that front. I have all the confidence in the world that we would have been able to, at the very least, get into field goal range with the chance to win 16-13.
And, you know, they kind of did that. They were trying to run the ball out, but then again, we talked about it earlier.
That Charlie Becker. Play to Charlie Becker.
Beauty.
Charlie B. from Nashville, Tennessee.
Gus Johnson couldn't have enough of that.
What was it, 5 or 6 times he said it throughout the broadcast?
I watched the highlights a million times since after that game. Every single time Charlie Becker was on the field and did something, Charlie B. from Nashville, Tennessee.
Doza. Charlie B. from Nashville, Tennessee.
He was going crazy. Gus Johnson was loving.
I love Gus Johnson,
Oh
man.
my
His
God.
voice is electric. The same, like the Omar Cooper catch against Penn State. He almost had a heart attack. It's just, he's one of the best. But Charlie B. from Tennessee, man, he was an X factor. And I think he'll be an X factor going forward as well, especially if Omar Cooper is not at full strength.
I'm really curious, and this is only something Gus Johnson could tell us. During Charlie Becker's breakout game, the one where he had
Penn State game.
Penn State game, and Gus is calling the game, and he made a huge catch, and Gus slipped up, and he said he was from Bloomington. He said he was a hometown team. He said he was from Bloomington, Indiana. And then he corrected himself soon after and said, no, he's from Nashville, Tennessee. Do you think that's why? Because he screwed up the first time saying it.
On his little cheat sheet, he had Nashville, Tennessee,
says-
bold, highlighted, circled.
He feels like he has to make up for it by saying Nashville, Tennessee every time Charlie Becker catches the ball.
It is a catchy rhyme, I will say.
I'm not going to lie. I don't really care why he said it. Charlie Becker from Nashville, Tennessee
Every
with a
time he
game
said
on
Charlie
the line.
Becker's name, he was making some huge play. That 50-yard catch downfield, oh my God, that is beautiful. That's going to be one of the throws that when Mendoza enters the NFL draft, they're going to put both of those balls, that 3rd and 6 at the end of the game and that deep ball to set up the Elijah Surratt touchdown. Those are going to be 2 of the highlighted
You'll hear
throws
the
from Mendoza's
ESPN
career.
draft music.
Yeah.
I think that's my favorite theme music. for
The little
anything.
chime.
Yeah, the chime. I love it. The chime and then the highlight music afterward.
Yep. In the background. I love it too. So with that, we talked about it a little before you got on, but I want to talk about it again. This game has to give you confidence for Indiana going forward in the college football playoffs. The top team in the country, just took down the top team in the country. And you said that you didn't think Indiana played so well. Do you think Indiana actually has a chance to go all the way?
What kind of question is that? Actually, has a chance. Actually,
certainly.
The only undefeated team in the country, Big Ten champions. How could they not have a chance? Now, will they win it all? I don't know. They might not. But in terms of who has the best chance, they got to be up there. They certainly have a chance, and they easily could go win it all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're
Agreed.
right. You're right. What kind of question who am I to ask that kind of question after they're the only undefeated team in the country having a historic season? It's just, this is so abnormal for Indiana sports.
I know.
Especially football.
Seeing an Indiana national championship banner in Memorial Stadium, like, it just doesn't feel like that's in the realm of possibilities, but it is.
You know,
it really is.
It's only not because it's not January 19th when the national championship game is being played. But they will have a Big Ten championship banner.
So I know what I think about this, but I've been seeing a lot of talk online, and I think it's a little silly, but I'll ask you. Because Indiana won the Big Ten championship, people are saying, oh, that's their Super Bowl. That's the game that matters most. Now they're not going to play with the same intensity, and they'll get knocked off in the playoff. Do you think that's a legitimate claim to make?
No. No.
You know why I don't think it's legitimate? I think there's one, I could say one word as to why it's not legitimate.
Yep.
Signetti.
Mm-hmm.
I
that was the
completely agree.
exact thought that was in my head. I was about to jump in and say that. With a lot of coaches in the college football landscape, maybe they do celebrate a little bit too hard. Maybe they can't lock back in. Not with Kirk Signetti.
No.
Not an ounce of thought in my mind that he's not going to have these boys ready to play on New Year's Day.
The first thing that he said after winning the Big Ten championship title, the biggest game in IU football program history, was, I have 3.5 weeks to get these boys humble and hungry to go win some more football games.
Hungry and humble.
Oh,
Hungry.
sorry. My apologies. But anyways.
Hungry, humble, and healthy. Those were his 3 words, his 3 H's.
And you know what? He's absolutely right. And he's maybe one of the only guys currently coaching college football that I trust to get a team who's never done something before and then make them hungry. Because to be hungry after doing something that's never been achieved before, how do you feel like the underdog? How do you feel the need to go all out? Because when you go against Oregon in Autzen Stadium, when you go against Penn State, try and beat them in Beaver Stadium, and then you go up against Ohio State, 3 teams that are clearly, all of those games were hard-fought wins. Indiana won all of them as maybe not dogs for the Penn State game, but they had that comeback at the end of the game. So in that sense, they were dogs. They're no longer the dogs. They're the favorites. They're the ones being hunted, not the hunting. Yet Curt Signetti is maybe the one guy that I trust the most to turn the hunted into the hunters.
There's mind games going on.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the factors is this Indiana football team in the past 2 seasons under Curt Signetti, unless my memory fails me, has never played an SEC team, which is something that I think that's an interesting thing to watch because, we've had Big Ten success. Is there a different style of football that the Big Ten plays? Maybe he's just been studying all the Big Ten film, but playing a team, especially in Alabama, who is the epitome of college football success, a legendary, probably whole 21st century under Nick Saban for the most part, numerous championships in college football playoff appearances back when it was a 4-team playoff. That winning against a team like Alabama in the playoffs, I think, is a different ball game, even if it's not under Coach Nick Saban. Then
could be former Hoosier coach against current Hoosier coach.
Yeah, that would
Curt
be
Signetti, learn from the best.
Would definitely be an interesting matchup, which kind of brings me into the next thing I want to ask you guys, which is not just for Bama, maybe with the Miami Notre Dame swap that they ended up doing, but do you agree with the college football playoff rankings 1 through 12? Do you think that what's your big Sam? You're shaking your head. No, go right ahead.
Go.
Well, first off, I want to clarify the question. Is it what do I think is fair? Or what do I think who do I think are the top 12 teams in the country?
Do you agree? Actually, yeah. Top 12 team, whichever one you feel like answering.
If we're saying it's the top 12 teams in the country, this isn't the format for that. Because
I completely agree.
We have 2 group of 5 teams. It's clearly not the top 12 teams in the country. We want inclusivity. Mm-hmm. That's really what the bracket is.
Yeah.
We want to make it fair. Is this fair? No, I don't think this is fair.
I agree.
Why do I not think it's fair? Well, I don't know how you could punish Notre Dame for winning their last 10 games in a row. And you could say, well, there's these different arguments. That's you're then admitting that you screwed up weeks prior. So then how do you fix that? You can't fix. There's no good solution for that other than knocking a group of 5 team out, which you said you wouldn't do. Then what? What do you do with BYU? Why does Alabama not move down even one spot, not even from 9 to 10, but BYU drops out of the playoffs?
See, that's my thing.
That
is.
I care more about BYU than Notre Dame.
I completely agree. I think that if you're willing to drop BYU to make Miami and Notre Dame next to each other, where then I do agree you have to look at the head-to-head and you have to say Miami beat Notre Dame. We can't punish Miami for beating Notre Dame. They won. We saw what happened when these two played. Miami has to be above Notre Dame, in my mind. But the only way that they can do that was because they dropped BYU. If you can drop BYU, then why can't you drop Bama? That doesn't make any sense to me.
I think this is perfectly fine. I would have had little gripes, but it would have been okay if BYU replaces Miami. And then we don't know what they're going to do with Notre Dame Miami. They don't give us a hint there.
See, the thing is though is BYU didn't deserve to jump Notre Dame. I actually agree with BYU dropping and Miami jumping BYU. And then of course I just said I agree that Miami and Notre Dame should have flopped, which brings me into another thing of I don't think they should make a college football committee vote on the bracket before the final bracket, because now you have to be like, oh, well, Miami clinched back up and they won the head-to-head, so we have to have them over Notre Dame. I don't like that. Don't make a college football playoff bracket before you have to, because now there's all this controversy and all this dilemma of who's getting flipped and whatnot.
My biggest problem is, why is it subjective?
That's
in the NFL.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
In the NFL, we know there's a rule, there's a system in place. These teams make the playoffs because of this. Why do we not know why teams make the playoffs? There should be a reason why teams make the playoffs. They should be laid out before the season so the teams know what they have to do to go make the playoff. It's very easy. You should make a rule so we know what's going to be the expectation.
The problem is the just lack of similar schedules. Now, the NFL or any professional sport, obviously there is disparity in playoffs or in scheduling, and teams play some harder teams and weaker teams, but that's so aggravated in the college sports landscape, especially with the G5 teams, which that's a whole other conversation. But especially Notre Dame not being in a conference, it gets super ugly. And I'm a college basketball guy first and foremost, and there is by all means a similar problem with strength of schedule differences and different difficulties of conferences. But in college basketball, there is so much more. It's still subjective somewhat. There is still a committee, but there's a lot more metrics and analytics and numbers that go into it, that you could say this team has a resume average of X and this team has a resume average of X of Y, and that team, based off of their record for the first 30 games of the season, seems like they have done more with what they have.
If I'm not mistaken, the FCS does that for their playoffs. They have some sort of data-driven model to determine who the best teams are and who makes the FCS playoffs.
The problem is college football has that too. Not a ton of them, but strength of record is ESPN's own metric. And that's kind of that's one of the main numbers that they put on the screen whenever you're comparing resumes. BYU, at least before the Big 12 championship, was number 6 in strength of record. Now, you can either say that that metric is flawed, or you can say that the committee is flawed, but one of those has to be true. If the 6th best performing team in the country, given what they have, did not make the playoffs. Now, BYU had 2 chances at Texas Tech, the clear favorite and best team in their conference, and didn't even put up a fight in either. So my argument is not that BYU should have made it, but I do agree with the point made before in that if you drop BYU from losing to a top 5 team in the country by 20 plus points, why does Bama not drop from a team that is 1 spot ahead of Texas Tech in a similar fashion, similar result. That was just a blowout. Neither Bama or BYU ever really looked like they had a chance. All of those teams are in the same range. Georgia and Texas Tech 3-4, Bama and BYU 9-11. It's like there just didn't seem to be any consistency, and I think that's the issue, the lack of consistency.
Which is why I think that they shouldn't make the bracket beforehand, because now it's like, well, we had them here. We kind of have to do this in order to get that, and we have to get that because they deserve that. So then it's like you have to maneuver things that you shouldn't really be maneuvering. But I think in a perfect scenario, Bama and BYU both don't deserve to be in. Because if we're taking the playoffs with the way that the committee is, it's not, it is subjective. So, and that's how it's been in the past. We've seen teams play bad before
We've
and
seen
drop.
a 13-0 Florida State team not even
I
make
was
it.
just going to bring that up.
See, that was the beginning of the end for the committee, I think. That I was so outraged.
Why does Ole
with
Miss
that.
make it?
Yeah. No, if Florida State drops as an undefeated ACC champion and when they were the top 4 all year,
Why play
then
the games?
why can't Bama drop 2 spots after getting blown out by Georgia? You can't tell me that you genuinely believe Alabama is a team that is going to win the national championship. And yeah, you can make the argument that a month ago you could believe that. But right now, today, after what we've seen, I don't think that they can.
Why does the 2-loss Ole Miss team still rank at 6th
Yeah.
without their offensive system in place?
Why didn't they drop?
The precedent, yeah, that goes back to inconsistency. I think that is the main issue of the committee, is each year they make their decisions. Now, regardless of who's in and who's out, every year there's going to be people that have gripes, whether it's the fans of the first team out or whoever it may be. There's always going to be people that say they should have done something different. That's going to happen regardless. But if there was at least some consistency where you could say year over year, these are the main factors that the committee has been deciding on, and you can understand where they went with that decision, and then that the following year they make the same decision based off the same criteria. There's just none of that. They knocked FSU out because they lost their starting quarterback even though they were undefeated. And then Ole Miss comes in, doesn't lose a spot. In fact, jumps a spot after Lane Kiffin was announced to be departing for LSU. There's
Doesn't
just
make a lot of sense.
no consistency. And same thing with Alabama and BYU, one dropping, one not. There's no consistency, and I think that's where the issue lies.
I saw an interesting proposal for this year, and this was just a this year thing. I actually like the expanded playoff. I like getting more teams in, more games, upsets. I love upsets. That's what makes college basketball so great.
That's why you love sports.
But with this particular bracket and the teams that we have this year, the thought was it should just be 4 teams. I mean, if we're going to penalize BYU for losing badly to Texas Tech twice, if we're going to not punish Alabama for losing badly to Georgia, if we're going to let Miami come in after really not playing very well in their 2 losses, and Tulane, the group of 5 is very weak with Tulane and James Madison. Ole Miss loses their head coach and their entire real system in place. Oregon has a loss that really wasn't very pretty to Indiana. There's a case to be made the only 4 teams with a chance are the top 4. And I don't like that argument because I like seeing, well, let's play the games, right? But that's the way it was before. I mean, do you think the only 4 teams that are deserving are the top 4?
Absolutely. I was never and I will never be an advocate for the 12-team playoffs. And that's because I don't think that every year, or most years, quite frankly, there are 12 teams who have proven to me that they deserve to be contending for the national championship.
I don't think that's... See, I don't disagree, but I also think that takes away from the excitement and the upsets of sports. Like, no matter what, if I don't care if James Madison or Tulane will never win national championship. If you put those G5 teams in, once in the next decade, if one of them wins, that's a legendary story.
See, but then you have teams like, right now, Alabama. They lost to FSU earlier in the year. That loss means nothing now because they're still in the playoffs. You have teams losing bad games, still making the playoffs.
Would you prefer Vanderbilt to make it over Alabama?
No.
It would make for an exciting playoff
You think Texas
game.
should have made it over Alabama?
Texas is a different argument because of the Ohio State Week 1 game. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
But
These are tough conversations, but at the
actually-
end of the day, I don't think that any of it matters because I don't think Texas, Vanderbilt, Alabama, Oklahoma, none of the teams below them deserve the chance to be playing for the national championship game. I think there have to be consequences, and we clearly aren't seeing it in the SEC title game. We're not seeing it really anywhere else because we're expanding the playoffs to allow teams who have 2 losses, 3 losses to be in the college football playoffs, and I don't think that fits what college football preaches. College football has always been the top 2 teams. Then it turned to 4 teams. Sure, but you could argue right now 4 teams deserve to be fighting for
There's
the
an
national.
argument just 2 teams deserve
okay,
it.
You can absolutely
let
argue
me ask
that.
you this: Ohio State last year, an 8 seed, walked through the college football playoff and won the national championship.
Should have
And
been the 8th seed.
See,
by
but
the end,
the
it's
rankings
very
were weird. The rankings were weird
Well,
because
but
the 4 teams that won got buys, so Ohio State couldn't have.
That's
they
fair.
had to drop
but
lower.
they still would have been outside the top 4, given where the committee
Good,
had
then
them
don't
going
lose a
in.
game. Don't lose to Oregon.
Fine by
twice.
me.
Don't lose twice
But
to
does
Oregon.
the-
They lost twice to Oregon, right? They lost in the regular season,
They lost in the regular season,
and then
Who was
they
it?
beat them in the first round of the college football playoff last
It was,
year,
they
or the
only-
second round.
was Oregon the only loss that they had last year going into the CFP?
Michigan.
They lost to Michigan. as well.
Michigan. See, don't lose that game. Like I think that there have
That's
to be
fine,
big implications
but
on
if
these
you want
games.
the best teams in the playoff, Ohio State, I mean, based off the results of the playoff last year, was
Sure.
the best team in the country.
Sure, by the end of the year. But I think that you have to have
I
the
think
best teams throughout the year. Losses have to mean something. Losses don't mean anything anymore. You can lose 2 games and you're still in the same situation as everyone else. The gap from 4 to 5 in terms of who I think deserves to be in the playoffs is huge.
Why does Tech deserve it? If you're going to say a 1-loss Oregon is
Well,
worse
they
than
they
Tech.
they won their conference. The Big 12 is a very difficult conference. I mean, it's not the SEC or the Big 10, especially not this year. But the Big 12 is a huge conference.
I think with your argument, there's a position for Oregon to be the 4 and Texas Tech to be the 5.
I don't think that's
Oregon
a crazy. I don't think that's.
having one loss to what
So the
come
number 1 team in
playoff
the
time
country.
is the best team in the country, the number 1 seed in the country. I think Oregon deserves the right to play for the national
Do
championship.
you think that the national champion should be able? The team that plays for a national championship should be able to lose a game to a team that's not even close to being ranked.
So what about this? What if there was a
Wait, I kind of want to hear your answer to this one
No,
first.
it answers your question. Let's say, should it disqualify you from the playoffs if you lose a team that's to a team that's not in the playoffs?
Not necessarily, because what if every team does that? Like, there's no guarantee that there's going to be 4 undefeated teams. There's no guarantee there's
No,
going to
but-
be at 1 undefeated
No, but it's
team.
not about undefeated teams. If we go by the thing I just said, Indiana would be in the playoff, Ohio State would be in the playoff, Georgia would be in the playoff, Texas Tech would not. I don't know. I haven't memorized the schedule for everyone
Oregon.
else. But
Alabama
Oregon
would.
would be
Alabama
in. That's
would
4.
not.
Alabama would not.
Miami would not.
Notre Dame would.
Notre Dame
A&M
would.
Notre
A&M
Dame
would
would.
not.
See, that's
So
an
that's
interesting
how you
thing.
get your field.
See, Notre Dame is similar to Ohio State last year, where if you try to watch each team play and look at the eye test, Notre Dame is a top 5, if not
I
top
agree.
10,
I
if
agree.
not top 5 team in the country.
I agree.
But given their resume, given the teams that they've played, the only 2 teams in the playoff they lost to, and their best wins come to 2 fringe top 25 teams that never really had a shot at the playoff. Now, again, those 2 losses come the first 2 games of the season with a quarterback who's making his first 2 starts in college. You can give a grain of salt. You can say Notre Dame, the next 10 games of the season, look like a team that deserved to be in the playoff. They're 10-2, similar record to everyone else. But if you just look at facts, Notre Dame did not deserve there.
See, but I think that I don't disagree. I think that the fact that they lost 2 games, I think that's just too much at the end of the day, because I'm still used to the 4-game playoff and the 2-team championships of before, and I like that a lot better than I like the 12-team. The 12-team feels like the regular season doesn't matter anymore.
You know what I will say about that? I like the 2-team and the 4-team because it's over at a time that I think is a little bigger. Why is the playoff being stretched out over the next, month plus, month and a half?
Yeah, over a month.
It used to end on January 1st, and I thought that was perfect.
Yeah.
Now we're getting really pushed later, and people were saying, well, why don't we play this week? Why doesn't the first round start this week?
I mean, there's just too many teams that are in, and that's my problem with it because I don't think Ole Miss deserves to be playing for the national championship. I don't think Oklahoma, Bama, any of the teams below them do. There's not a single team. Do I think they deserve to make the playoffs under the current rules and constraints of the playoffs? Absolutely. I think Ole Miss should be in the same way I thought that Florida State should have been in a couple years back. I don't think you can punish the entire team based off of one human. I don't think that that's fair. I don't think that Oklahoma should not be in the playoffs given the constraints. But I don't think that they should be I don't think they're a deserving team to play for the national championship. I don't think anyone genuinely believes that these are national championship quality teams. And I don't think they are for the group of 5 teams. I actually don't think the group of 5 should get an auto bid. I think that the group of 5 should get a bid if they're I like the idea of the top 4 conference champions get in if we're doing the current, not top 5. Because I don't think a group of 5 should be guaranteed to get in. In this unique circumstance, sure, give it a Tulane or JMU over Duke, because Duke does not deserve to be in. A 5-loss team should never even be considered to be in the college football playoffs. But
hey, they beat Virginia.
Oh, congratulations! But I
lost to Tulane.
Yeah, but
And UConn.
I just don't think that there should be a guaranteed group of 5 team, because if you want the playoffs to be teams to compete for a national championship game,
that's the thing. I don't. I know I'm probably one of the few there, but I'll let you continue and jump in later.
I like the fun. of the group of 5.
I love it. I love the fun. I just don't think they deserve it.
It gives you someone to root for if your team is out.
Like I said, as a college basketball guy, I love the Cinderellas. You know, it didn't happen last year, but
was that not the most boring?
You eliminate the group of 5 teams in the group of 5 equivalents in college basketball. You don't get St. Peter's. You don't get Oral Roberts. You don't get any of that.
Fine, then make it 40. Make it 2014 playoffs. Double it. Who cares? Let's have more Cinderella teams. There's no stopping the limit to how many Cinderella teams you can make with this logic.
If you win your conference, and there does need to be tweaks, I agree. But 11-1 Tulane, 11-1 James Madison win their conference are good enough for the committee to say, regardless of the playoff, that they are top 25 teams in the country. They did. I mean, Tulane beat an ACC team. Duke, obviously not the best.
And at the time, they were worse than they are now.
JMU played an above-average ACC team as well with Louisville and lost by, the final score was 28-14. Score does not tell the story of the game. JMU was tied with Louisville entering the 4th quarter. Louisville scored a touchdown. JMU was trying to march down the field.
Sure. No doubt that JMU...
If they can compete with teams that are above average in a power conference, that
means that they deserve to compete for a national championship?
Does JMU keep it within 14 against Oregon?
I think they might. The spread is 21.5. Obviously, odds say that they don't. I'm curious to see. I mean, again, if this format happened for the next decade and none of the G5 teams were within 2 scores in any game, any of those years, maybe you have a claim. I want to see what this looks like, especially with the NIL era. The parity is at an all-time high. 5 or 10 years ago, there truly was only a couple of teams that could contend for a national championship. I think that number is slowly increasing and will continue to increase. And I like the idea of giving teams that aren't in power conferences, that don't have the opportunity to prove based off of resume throughout a whole season to get those high-quality wins. If they run through their conference like JMU did, I have no problem giving them a shot.
Sure. But let me ask you this. Kind of a little different from where we're at now. Do you think that every year, though, there should be a guaranteed group of 5 team make it? Do you think that every year there's a team? Does that not take away from the Cinderella run? Because I know they weren't exactly a group of 5, but TCU a couple years back, UCF a few years before then. Those are teams that I genuinely believe and proved. UCF didn't have the chance to, but TCU proved by beating Michigan that they could contend with the best. Does it not take away from those teams a little bit? Because those are the teams that I think deserve to be able to make the college football playoffs. The teams that actually have a chance.
Is that Vanderbilt for you? Who's the equivalent of that?
The thing is, Vanderbilt lost twice this season. TCU and UCF, they were undefeated. UCF was the hottest team in the country, regardless of who they played.
Fair, but in this college football landscape, there was only one undefeated team.
Yeah.
Your Indiana Hoosiers.
Right.
But
so does that mean that there should be a group of 5 teams get auto bids just because nobody else was good enough?
I think it's pretty hard to... I think, okay, if JMU, let's say, JMU lost to Louisville. Let's say JMU wins that game. Do you think that brings them from 24 to the top 12 in order to qualify naturally?
Yes, I do.
I'm not sure it does.
I think it does.
I think the committee would. I think the committee would.
What was Louisville? A 3 or 4 loss team at the end of the year?
Louisville finished 8-4. I believe.
Yeah, they're a 4 loss team. They're not.
But at the time that they played Louisville, it was at the beginning of the season.
At the time, at the Schmeim, like that's not how the committee.
But it doesn't.
FSU at the time
matter.
wasn't terrible.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're gonna drop from that loss. They now have to make up that much.
I wish we could phone in the committee and ask them. If JMU would be a top 12 team if they beat Louisville. I bet they'd say no.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance.
I think they might say yes, and I think maybe in practice they would. But JMU, if they went 12-0, people would not say that they are a top 12 team, regardless of where they were placed. People would say that Vanderbilt or Texas or BYU or Notre Dame are a better team than JMU.
But people said the same thing about TCU. Or not TCU. Yeah, TCU and about
and they won.
UCF. Right. But what I'm saying is it doesn't matter what people say if they're deserving or not because they're undefeated and they beat Louisville. Like, who cares? Like, Texas is still a better team. Like, well, we haven't seen that proven yet. In that example, I would think that JMU should deserve to get in.
Does it change for you if JMU beats Oregon?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because that would make me eat every word that I just spoke.
Does it change for you if JMU is down by a touchdown going into the fourth quarter and loses by 14?
I don't know. It's going to come down to how they play. If Oregon plays bad and that's the reason, then like maybe not. But I just don't think that we should be giving out participation trophies.
It's such a subjective argument.
Absolutely, this is a subjective topic.
Okay, so
everything's
fine.
subjective.
I know I keep bringing it back to college basketball. That's just like always my reference. I
think it's 2 different sports.
Here's another thing. College football. Now I don't disagree that there's definitely less. There's more games in college basketball there, and there's definitely more parity. But college football, like you said, there's less teams that can contend for a national championship truly. And I do agree with that, although I think that the number is probably going to slowly increase each year.
Unfortunately.
Why is that unfortunate? Do you not love sports? Do you not love the new stories, the new underdogs?
Of course I do. But it takes away from the entire season. It's not just...
I disagree.
It adds 3 games. It takes away from the top teams. You can't lose a game. You cannot lose a game. You have to be perfect. You lose a game, you have to do everything in your power to make sure that you prove each and every week that one loss does not determine the rest of your season. Now, you lose a game, it's okay, we're still in the mix. We lose 2 games, it's okay, we're still in the mix. Like, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that last year, although Ohio State proved to be the best team, they lose to Michigan and get rewarded with the 8 seed and end up winning the national championship. I think that Michigan game should have eliminated them. And yes, they won the chip, and maybe that's saying you take away from the best, then don't lose. Because if you don't have something on the line with each and every game that you play, does that not take away from the integrity of the game? Because now we're talking about Alabama losing by 21 points, looking atrocious, having negative yards in the SEC title game, and not being punished at all. There's no punishment anymore in college football, and I don't like that. And while I do like an underdog story, I love the fact that JMU and Tulane have a chance to prove to the world that they can go and win a playoff game against a top team, win a national championship.
You know what
I think it's great for sports. I just don't think it fits with college football.
You know what I loved that I saw with JMU? They were talking about how the JMU players watch every Indiana game. Because
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Because Indiana is basically JMU to them.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many transfers last year and this year.
You know how inspiring it
Indiana-
must be to see their former teammates, now the number 1 seed in the country, from a smaller school? It gives them the belief that they can make it there. Like,
No, I mean, I love it.
is
I love
basically
it.
proving that JMU can compete. They went undefeated. Why can't Why can't JMU beat Oregon? Why can't JMU beat Texas Tech?
It especially gives merit to the parity argument that a team of JMU football players is now the number 1 team in the country. If that doesn't prove that there's so much talent out there that can win games and make runs, then I don't know what will. I mean,
Indiana last year didn't really stand a chance against Ohio State and Notre Dame. They were close. They were close for a little bit.
That's
they were
fine.
close for a little bit.
So then, did Indiana not deserve to make the playoff last year?
They had one loss.
Given the premise of the 12-team playoffs, they absolutely deserve to be in. Do I think that Indiana was a team that was able to compete for a national championship after the way that they played against Ohio State? No.
It was self-inflicted. If you remember the game, it was self-inflicted. The punter dropped the ball in like the end zone, essentially.
And then we let up a kick return touchdown.
They let up a kick return touchdown.
Second half.
So you can't win on all 3 levels.
Sure, you can make that argument.
I think true ability to win a national championship and deserving to make the playoffs are 2 completely different
Should Ohio
things.
State be left out of the playoff because their kicker missed a 27-yard field goal?
No.
That's the Indiana case last year.
All right.
They
A little bit.
let down special
Those are
teams.
different arguments. Those are different cases. But I think, especially in today's game, where there's so much talent out there, Indiana being one example with JMU, but just there's so it's the beauty of sports that there's so much good football out there.
I just thought of a beautiful question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
2-team playoff. That's the way you like it, right? 2-team playoff?
Not necessarily.
Okay, well,
I mean, I'm not saying that I have.
you're making the case for a 2-team playoff at times. Fair?
I mean, I think personally a 16 playoff. That's
Okay,
what I've
okay.
been preaching
In
for
this-
the last year or so
Great.
since they went to 12.
Great, 16 playoff. In this hypothetical 2-team playoff, Indiana's obviously in, undefeated, they're 1. Who gets the second spot?
Georgia.
Ohio State or Georgia? You said Georgia. And this proves my point. This proves my point.
wait.
Ohio State misses because their kicker missed a 27-yard field goal, and they lost by 3 points to the consensus number 1 team, undefeated team in the country. And Indiana last year had 1 loss, and it was because of special teams mistakes. See, now it's tough. Now who's going to make the playoff?
See, that's a really good question. That's a really good question, and I'm not sure what I would do. I would need to think long and hard about that, and I'm sure the committee would too. I don't know if it's a 2-team playoff, what you do between Ohio State and Georgia. It's absolutely one of the 2. That's tough. I don't know. I'm gonna need to think about that for a good bit.
Fair.
But with that being said, we have a lot we still need to talk about. I don't want to cut this conversation short.
We don't have much time, probably.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. We'll extend.
Let's rapid fire.
We'll extend our time a little. All right, sure. Let's do a rapid fire. I like that idea. Starting out, who has the best path to the championship game?
Georgia.
Ooh.
I don't think Indiana's path is bad.
Path to the national championship
Path to
game.
the national championship game. Although I don't really think that the answer would change if you include the national championship game.
No, I guess not. But I will say, from an Indiana Hoosier fan perspective, I think winning that Big Ten championship game against Ohio State and not having to play either Ohio State or Georgia until the national championship is a huge reward.
Completely agree.
I think that was the benefit. And I think Ohio State would probably agree that they would have preferred not to play Georgia until the national championship game if they had to at all.
Well,
And-
then they should have won the game against Indiana.
Yes, and Indiana won, so they get the benefit of that. But the beauty of it is there are plenty of people that are scared of Oregon, and I kind of am too. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Oregon looks a lot better now, or as of late at least, than they did when they first played Indiana.
And you know they're going to want revenge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Anytime you get a team again,
I'm scared of playing a team a second time. I'm scared about potentially Oregon. I'm scared about potentially Ohio State.
I will say, I was scared going into Oregon. I was scared going into Penn State. I was scared going into Ohio State, and I will be scared if we go against Oregon again.
I'll be
who's
scared
not
in every
scared?
game.
You know who's not scared? Kurt Signetti, Fernando Mendoza, and the entire Indiana Hoosiers team.
Charlie
and that
B.
Charlie B
Charlie
from
B.
Nashville, Tennessee. The only thing that matters is how the players and the coaches feel going into a game, and I have more trust in them than I do in myself for a lot of things. And I'm a very confident person with most things that I do. So I do think that Indiana has the best path, and that's because Georgia and Ohio State are going to have to play each other. I don't know who comes out of that game. Every time I think about it, I flip. We'll get into who we think might win that game in just a minute, but I think Indiana has the best path. I don't trust Alabama. I think Indiana's defense can stop Alabama the same way Georgia did, if not even better. I think Indiana can stop Oklahoma's offense. We've seen them get stopped before. I think they can do it again. I think Indiana's path goes through Oregon, and I think Georgia or Ohio State's path go through each other, and I'd much rather play Oregon than the other two.
I would agree. I also think Texas Tech is dangerous.
I agree.
Like,
but we are only playing one of Oregon or Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think Texas Tech's defense is up there with the best defenses in the country, and their offense, I believe, has put up 40 points or more in 8 games this season, which
Wow.
I'm not sure if that's
Pretty sure the
if
Hoosiers
I'm
have
not
done
sure
that
if
too.
that's number one or up there, but it's certainly one of the nation's best. Their point differential is absurd, and you can say a weaker Big 12 than the SEC or the Big 10, but Texas Tech is dangerous regardless of the competition that they've faced. That being said, I think I would prefer to play Texas Tech because of the previous game against Oregon. They have direct full game film to dissect on what Indiana did to them and how they can beat that.
I completely agree.
So I would prefer to play Texas Tech. Who wins that game? I'm really not sure.
It's going to be a fun game.
Either
There are
way,
gonna be a
I
lot
would
of fun
definitely
games.
prefer either Oregon or Tech, as opposed to playing Ohio State or Georgia in the semifinals.
Yeah. Sam, you want to say something real quick or move on? All right. Who now has the toughest? But let's keep the rapid fire pace going.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. But
Are we?
do you- but-
Are we including teams that are playing in a couple weeks, or just the teams with buys?
No, we'll do any of the teams who has the toughest path of the teams that you genuinely think can actually make it though. Because obviously,
Okay,
because
so-
you could say JMU or Tulane because they're gonna have to go through some tough
Well,
teams.
Yeah,
then
but-
why don't we say top 4 seeds?
Okay,
I actually think Oregon has a difficult path
I agree.
of as opposed of the top 6 teams having to play a JMU team that they obviously should win, but I think JMU can put up a fight, and then a scary Tech team, and then an Indiana team, and then either Ohio State or Georgia. I also think I have a good friend who's an Ohio State fan who is pretty scared of Miami, actually.
That's what I was going to say. I think
I think Ohio State having to deal with a good A&M team who didn't play the best of SEC competition, but only lost throughout the season is away to a top 15 team in a rivalry game. A&M is dangerous. Miami has struggled. They have lost to a couple of slightly weaker opponents, but Miami has a couple of playmakers, and they have a veteran quarterback who's been to the college football playoff before. I think Ohio State having to deal with potentially Miami or A&M, I think Miami, and then Georgia and then potentially the Hoosiers again in the national championship. I think that's a dangerous path.
It's hard to say you're going to be scared of Carson Beck, but I mean, I
It
think
is,
Ohio State.
But in playoff experience, if you're Ohio State and your quarterback is a first-year starting quarterback and you're going up against a senior who has been in the college football playoff before, has been there, seen this, experienced it.
And you can make the case Indiana exposed a lot of Ohio State.
I agree. Game. I think the experience of those two quarterbacks in the Ohio State and Indiana game, I think, made a big difference. I think that's part of what me and Chase were talking about in the very beginning about Mendoza looking more comfortable than saying. I think that comes with experience.
I completely agree. I think the toughest is Texas Tech. They're going to have to go through Oregon, most likely, then most likely Indiana, and then one of whoever wins between Georgia and Ohio State to win the championship. Of the 4 teams with the bye, that sounds the toughest to me. So with that, though, we're going to move on. Who's the biggest dark horse? The teams that don't have a bye, any 5 or below, who has the best chance of winning? I think we're all probably going to go the same place.
Oregon?
Yeah.
I mean, It's easy to say Oregon if we're going to say anyone else except Oregon. It's so tough. I mean, how are you going to get by those first 4 teams, in my opinion?
Yeah.
You'll take something really lucky. Oregon probably is the best shot. I don't mind in Alabama to go on a run.
I just don't think Alabama has it in them. I'm not going to lie. I almost would rather play Alabama than Oklahoma if I'm Indiana.
They're both pretty similar with struggling offenses and pretty stout defenses, but after what I saw in that Alabama-Georgia game, I would feel decent about our chances taking down either, but Alabama specifically in that case.
I think it has to be Oregon, the team without a bye week that has the best chance to actually win. And they have, you could argue, the toughest schedule out of anybody in the entire bracket, going through 3 teams who have a bye, and one of those are going to include the winner of the 2 and 3 seed. That's tough.
I agree. I also think, like I mentioned before, I just wanted to briefly talk about Miami's path because there's an interesting game that could potentially arise in the semifinals. If Miami beats A&M and manages to take down the 2-seed Ohio State, semifinal game, Carson Beck playing against his former team, the Georgia Bulldogs. That would be cinema.
The fact that Tulane, I mean, are you discounting Tulane to beat Georgia here?
All right, Sam.
That's to get through Ole Miss first.
Yeah. I mean,
Tulane Ole Miss rematch. Ole Miss won by 35 in the first game, but you never know.
You never know.
Playing a team a second time.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to see an upset. Tulane upsetting or JMU upsetting. I just don't really see it happening at the end of the day.
I'll be rooting for it.
I will be as well. That would be fun.
That'd be historic football.
Although I'm saying I don't think they should be in, I will be rooting for it, and I would love for it to happen for the sake of sports as a whole.
It's a beautiful sports moment if it happens.
1,000,000%. But I don't actually think that they're going to win. But we're going to move on now. There are a lot of good potential games, even going into the national championship, with every potential matchup included. What is the biggest game that could be made of this entire playoffs?
I think it's a rematch of 1 versus 2, rematch of the Big Ten Championship, rematch of that gritty battle that we just saw on Saturday night. I mean, it's a little bit of a cop-out answer, but
I don't think it's a cop-out.
I mean, Ohio State and Georgia would be a masterpiece of a game as well. But I think seeing the 2 teams that we just saw, the 2 best teams in the country going into the game, and the 2 best teams in the country by college football playoff rankings right now, playing again for the second time after a battle in the national championship game, 2 teams in the same conference, the veterans Indiana Hoosiers against the young, talented Ohio State team. But on the flip side, the playoff experience of Ryan Day and just the Ohio State program in general. They've been here. They've done that against the first time ever being in the national championship. The Indiana Hoosiers, the underdogs by college football historical standards. I think that would be an incredible game, an incredible story, and I think you couldn't script it better than that.
That's true. Sam?
Same game. Indiana, Ohio State. He just said it. Look, when we're reviewing what occurred between those two in the 13-10 game, why don't we want that again? Despite the score, you could say it was low scoring. It wasn't as much offensive firepower.
It was by far the best game
of the
out of the
season.
conference games, and probably one of the best games of the season as well. People like offense. I love a gritty defensive battle. The trenches, man, like that. We were there.
To me, what was better than Mendoza getting punched on the first play of the game, sitting out a play, then returning a play later, then going to win the game?
Oh my, nothing. Like it's beautiful football. Like
storybook.
You can't. There's nothing else to say. I would be terrified, but man, that would be such a good football game.
You know, just for the sake of being different, UGA versus OSU. I think that is going to be such a battle on both sides of the ball. Both defenses are hot. Both offenses are hot. This to me is going to be the big test about whether or not we can trust Sayin this year at least. Next year, he'll come back and he'll probably be unbelievable. But this year, after seeing what happened against Indiana, there were a lot of times where I genuinely thought Ohio State could win the game, and then Sayin is looking the wrong direction. Sayin's he's not progressing through his reads. Sayin is flustered by the pressure that Indiana's throwing his way. And Georgia does all of those things, maybe not to the extent of Indiana this year, but you could argue that they're pretty darn close. I think that that's going to be a huge test to see what Sayin is made of.
I agree.
And that's going to be, to me, before the national championship game, because I agree, Indiana, Ohio State, that matchup was unbelievable. And not just because I'm an Indiana fan. That matchup was every play you could feel the intensity. That's not something that you're used to seeing on any given football day. I think that UGA versus OSU is a huge matchup where we're going to learn a lot about both of these teams because Georgia lost to Bama earlier in the year, and ever since then they've looked dominant. And Ohio State's looked dominant up until they played Indiana, but even still they had their moments. So to me, that's going to be the big test of which of these two teams really has that championship caliber squad, and then whoever wins that game is going to have to go up against what I'm presuming to be one of Indiana, Oregon, or Texas Tech, three also incredible teams. That's going to be the game to watch for me.
Not to bring up the old argument, but just rattling off all those teams, is that not parody?
I named five.
Fair
I named
enough.
five.
I said you wanted six.
I named five. I want six.
We're not going to get back there. But I agree. I think Indiana exposed a lot of, there's not many, but of the weaknesses that Ohio State has, because going into this game, people thought Ohio State was pretty much unstoppable. And Indiana stopped them. And they showed a couple of the weaknesses, Sayin and getting pressure to him being one of them, probably the biggest. But it's going to be a really interesting point to see if Ryan Day and the Ohio State staff sees those weaknesses, get exploited, and has the ability to improve on those and fix their team and get them ready for a national championship run, or if Indiana just exposed those weaknesses and now other teams can capitalize, like Georgia, like Kirby Smart, being able to take advantage of what Indiana just exposed.
It's going to be unbelievable to watch all of this unfold. I'm actually so excited. And this is part of the reason that I was saying earlier that I only think it should be the championship quality teams fighting, because I want to see Georgia play Ohio State. I want to see Indiana play Texas State.
But if they lose,
teams,
then are they deserving of playing Ohio State?
Yeah,
No.
sure.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Make all of these
It's good banter.
conversations all you want. But what I'm saying is the fact that we would.
There's so many great matchups.
I want to get these teams playing against each other because I have so many questions. I have so many answers that I'm searching for. I'm essentially yearning for some of these games.
Look at that word.
Yeah, look at that.
And
Here,
we have to wait.
Shout out mom, because I'm using all the synonyms that she's been sending me. But with that being said,
Your mom sends you synonyms?
Yeah.
I wish
That's
my
so
mom sent me
sweet.
synonyms.
She sends me synonyms. She tries to get me to stop saying phenomenal, which I say too much. Sorry.
I would like to do a vocab class with you. I'd love to do a a synonym class with you and your mom. 'Cause I want to learn more vocabulary.
Anyways, all right. The final question, the biggest question of all. When it's all said and done, January 19th, what's the matchup? And approximately 11:30 p.m., January 19th, who is declared the 2026 national champions?
You want to go first?
I'll go first. I got Indiana taking on Georgia in the national championship game. We don't get Indiana OSU part 2. I think OSU is going to falter against Georgia. Julian Sayan's going to get exposed a little bit, kind of as you alluded to. And in that national championship game, Indiana, Georgia, it'll be another one somewhat low scoring, resembling what we saw of Indiana, Ohio State, and kind of what we saw from Georgia, Georgia Tech. If you remember that game where Georgia didn't look particularly strong offensively, but they did enough to stop the Gold Jackets. What are they? The Gold Jackets? Is that
Golden
I
Jackets?
think they're the Golden Jackets.
Golden Jackets, whatever. My apologies to Georgia Tech. But they'll do enough to stop Indiana, enough to make it close. You want a score prediction? Is that part of this too?
No, you don't. Do whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay. I'll go as far as making a score prediction. Indiana, Georgia. Indiana wins. Final score. Hold on. Final score.
Sees the vision.
19-13.
19 to 13.
Interesting. If that happens, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Max?
I can't not pick the Hoosiers, right?
You could do whatever you want.
No. All right. National championship game. We get what we all want. The Indiana Hoosiers taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes for the second time. And we get a similar result. Indiana, I'll go 20-17. We get a Nico Radicic game-winning field goal. And the player of the game, the national champion, quarterback, and player of the game for the national championship is this guy right here. Number 15 for the Indiana Hoosiers, Fernando Mendoza.
Heisman-doza.
Heisman-doza.
Right there. We're
You know
right
what I
there,
thought you were going to
Sam.
say? I thought you were going to say that Brandon Frankie comes back from injury and drills a 60-yarder for the win.
Oh, that would be unreal.
That would be electric. I would
Super
love to see
underrated
that.
clutch moment from the Oregon game. No one talks about that, but all right. Chase, your prediction.
I almost hate that you guys both took Indiana.
I didn't want to, but
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
It's just like you with your prediction. You can't not take Indiana.
I have to. We
You
have to.
You have to.
But at the end of the day, Sam, I agree. And I did allude to it earlier, but I agree with everything that you just said. I think that Georgia beats Ohio State. I don't think Sayan is made for a moment like he's about to face just yet. He clearly wasn't ready in the Big Ten Championship, and I don't think he'll be ready against Georgia. Georgia's a team who plays in, you could argue, the toughest conference. I know the Big Ten has the top 2 teams in the country, but you could argue the SEC is the toughest conference. They've only lost 1 game. They blew out Alabama. I mean, it was only a 3-score game, but it felt like 50. And I think that Georgia's going to whoop Ohio State.
Wow. You think it's not going to be close?
I don't. I don't think Ohio State. And then Indiana versus Georgia. Georgia's tough. But, Max, I'm doing exactly what you're doing. Give me the Hoosiers. Give me Indiana.
It's like a high school commitment. Put on the hat.
Except I'm not
He
flipping this one
doesn't
off.
have a Georgia hat. That's the issue. He can't even choose Georgia.
No, there's no fake outs on this one. This one's Indiana all the way. Big Ten champions, undefeated. Max, you brought this point up to me earlier.